Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Monday. It's the start of another week. I hope you're doing well, wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. Thank you, as always, for joining me. Bit of a quiet start to the week, certainly Arsenal-wise. Bits and pieces going on that we will talk about in today's show. Plenty going on in wider football. First transfer window of the summer, obviously now open just for a short time for those teams playing in the Club World Cup to register their players, although everyone can take advantage of it. Whether Arsenal do, we'll have to wait and see. Looking doubtful at this precise moment in time. But you never know. There is still some time left for them to do some business. Man United confirming their move for Matheus Cunha yesterday. That's the first big transfer of the summer officially kind of completed or announced anyway. So we're going to talk about bits and pieces today. We're going to talk about Bryan Mbeumo being linked, Fabrizio Romano linking him with Arsenal amongst other clubs as well. So I'll give my thoughts on that. We're going to talk about Thomas Partey. Lots to talk about him and Barcelona in the last 24 hours. I'll give my information on that. What else are we going to talk? I'm going to talk about Bukayo Saka and the rubbish that I've seen doing the rounds in the last 24 hours or so, because he refused to give an interview on the F1 grid yesterday ahead of the Spanish Grand Prix, when he was sort of pounced upon by, I think it was Martin Brundle and oh God, I've forgotten his name. This is going to be another Joshua Kimmich moment all over again. The former, I'm going to remember his name. I can't believe it. Nico Rosberg. There you go. I remembered his name this time, unlike I did with Joshua Kimmich last week. Got pounced upon by those two on the grid walk yesterday and didn't want to give an interview. And of course, Tottenham, Chelsea, everyone else, all their fans on social media have been calling him every sort of name under the sun because of that. So I'm going to give my thoughts on that. As you can tell by my voice, I think it's quite farcical, but we will talk about that. I've got lots of questions and comments from you guys to get stuck into as well. But we'll start with Bryan Mbeumo, who's a really interesting one this summer. He's definitely, I was going to say he's definitely going to move. I would say 95% certain he is going to leave Brentford this summer on the back of an unbelievable season. He's been brilliant for a good couple of years now for Brentford. Him and Vissa were just a fantastic partnership last season, scoring so many goals, assisting each other all the time. You know, the proper partnership between those two. But you'd think from a Brentford point of view, that's probably the last time they're going to be together in a Brentford shirt. And he will be on the move. And Fabrizio Romano was talking on his YouTube channel yesterday and giving a sort of update on various things. And he talked about Mbeumo, and he named Arsenal as one of three interested clubs. I can't remember the other clubs. They're all Premier League clubs who are interested in Mbeumo. And of course, we've heard of interest from Arsenal in Mbeumo in the past. My issue with Mbeumo, who I think is a fantastic player, by the way, at 21 goals he scored in all comps last season for Brentford. Strong runner, really, really good technique, really good finisher as well. You see when you get into those positions, can go on the outside, can cut inside on the inside as well. And when you saw the partnership he struck up with Vissa as well, you know that he's a team player. So he's a fantastic player, and whoever signs him will be getting a hell of a player, hell of a talent. My issue on him, and Arsenal need another winger, absolutely. But I worry, he's such a predominantly right-sided player that if you're going to be investing as much as it would take, and look, this is what Thomas Frank said in an interview a couple of days ago. He was talking to Viaplay about Mbeumo, and he said, it is clear that if he is to be sold, it must be for a nice amount. It is a lot, mucho, really a lot. Then it's clear that it is impossible to replace him one for one. It cannot be done. There is a reason why he costs an X amount of millions of pounds, and we do not have X number of millions of pounds to buy. I would say that I would be surprised if a lot of big clubs don't look at him. I'd be surprised with what he has to offer. How many wingers score 20 goals for a mid-table club, and then with 7 assists, as well as his work ethic and his character? All these things mean that he has a lot, so he is a good player. Brentford are not going to give Bryan Mbeumo away for cheap. And my issue here is that if Arsenal are going to invest an awful lot of money in a winger, which I think they need to do it in an area where they really have to improve. And I just don't think it is the right-hand side, because you've got Bukayo Saka on the right-hand side. No one's going to replace Bukayo Saka. You've also got Ethan Nwaneri, who can now be that sort of cover and competition for Bukayo Saka as well. So you're well stocked over in that side. It's the other side. Now, if Mbeumo is a left winger, absolutely, I'd be all over that, because all the things I've listed about him, he's a real talent. He scores goals, Premier League proven, still young, 25. He'd be perfect if he was a left-sided winger, but he's just a right-sided winger. So if you're going to invest that sort of money, which Arsenal need to do to improve their options out wide, you don't really want to do it in the area where you've got your absolute guaranteed starter who you're not going to be knocking out the team. No one replaces Bukayo Saka. And I think the emergence of Nwaneri as well has kind of lessened Arsenal's need to really bring in that sort of competition for Saka that we've craved for a long time, because I think Ethan can absolutely be that, and he's going to need to get more minutes next season. You bring in another right winger, then where did Ethan get his minutes? So it's all about the other side for me. Your replacement, your competition, you cover whatever for Martinelli, for Trossard. Improving that area of the pitch. That's why I look at Rodrigo, who we've spoken about, Nico Williams, Eze, all those sort of players. That's for me where Arsenal's real target needs to be. So it just doesn't feel like Mbeumo is a realistic option in this window. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it's something they do. Maybe they see something in him and they think they can play him in another. They can play him on the left. I don't know, but it just doesn't. It doesn't really tick a lot of boxes for me for making much sense. If you see what I mean, I'm sure there'll be support from it. Let me know in the comments below. What you guys think about it. Whether you think it would be a good sign, and if you share the sort of opinion for me. Excellent player, but just doesn't really fit in the squad right now at Arsenal. I'd love to know your thoughts on it. So let me know in the comments below. Right, let's talk about Bukayo Saka, shall we? Now, I was watching this live yesterday. I was at my dad's house with my kids, and we were watching the Spanish Grand Prix. And I'd just seen that the England squad were over there on a bit of a jolly. They're doing a sort of warm weather training camp, I think, this week before the international start next week. And I'd just seen on social media that they were there. And I was like, oh, the England team are there. I was talking to my dad. And then lo and behold, they're doing the grid walk before the start of Grand Prix. And suddenly the England team are in the background of the picture, the camera. And there's an interview done by Harry Kane. And then they suddenly flip at the end of that interview. The players aren't expecting it, obviously. Haven't been told that something like this was potentially going to happen. I think the interview with Kane was done. So the England players were just waiting there, sort of waiting for Kane to finish. They weren't expecting the cameras to suddenly dive onto them. And I think it was Martin Brundle and Nico Rosberg. And then suddenly at the end of Kane, we're just like, oh, we've got a bit more time. Shall we just get, Bukayo Saka? And they leapt on Bukayo Saka, who was standing there totally unaware, not expecting it at all. And suddenly the camera was in his face. They were being asked questions about F1, and Saka was clearly just a bit like, "Wow, what's going on here?" And he's like, "Oh no, I'd rather not say. I'd rather not say." He wasn't rude or anything like that. He just didn't really want to do the interview, which is perfectly fine. We don't even know if he's a massive F1 fan or anything. Obviously, they were there as the England team. They'd been invited there because they're doing this training camp in Spain. And he just didn't want to answer the questions. And I was laughing about it at the time. My dad, I was like, "Oh god, that caught Bukayo totally unaware. He wasn't really expecting that." And didn't think anything more of it. And then I went out with the kids and everything, and then came back in the evening. I was just scrolling on my phone, and honestly, the timeline was just people retweeting. Saka was trending. Everyone was talking about it. Oh, it's disgraceful. All this. How rude is Bukayo Saka? Shouldn't be on the grid if he's not going to answer questions. There's this unwritten rule in F1 that if you're on the grid, you have to answer questions if the cameras come to you, which I don't think is true by any means. By the way, nothing is set in stone on that, and it's just laughable that there is no more humble footballer than Bukayo Saka. There just isn't. You talk to anyone around. You talk to Bukayo Saka first of all. You know that just from talking to him. But anyone else in football you talk to, no one is more humble and more open to doing stuff than Bukayo Saka. But he just wasn't comfortable doing it in this situation, which is absolutely fine. He's not expecting a camera to be shoved in his face and questions about F1 to be suddenly thrown at him when he's just not ready for it. And he was clearly a bit startled by it and didn't want to get involved. And that was it. But honestly, the tool people just like to use something to jump on someone's back and to start hurling abuse at them and calling them any sort of name under the sun and saying what a disgrace this guy is. I mean, people are so quick to jump on people and try and destroy them. It just blows my mind. It's like, what is this, the end of the world? Is it the worst thing that's ever been done? Absolutely not. Is it perfectly understandable for someone to not really want to answer a question that's just been sort of thrown up at the spur of the moment? Yes, it depends on who you are. Obviously, they went to Dan Burn afterwards, and Dan Burn did it. Fair play to him. He was more ready, he was more prepared for it, and he was more comfortable doing it. Bukayo Saka wasn't. And it's perfectly up to him if he doesn't want to do an interview. It's as simple as that. So why are people just diving on him and having a go at him? It just blows my mind, honestly. It does. Just some people, and it just blows my mind. By the way, more importantly, look who he's hanging around with in all the pictures. If you watch on YouTube, you see that he was always next to Eze. Come on, Bukayo, do your work. As I was saying about Mbeumo, I'm not sure about right-sided player. left-sided player, I'd be all over this summer, and I'd certainly be all over that man. So do your work, Bukayo. Little word into Eze's ear, little word back to Mikel. Job done. Easy. Easy as that, isn't it, Arsenal? Get this deals done. Get this deals done. So, yeah, that was my little rant on Bukayo Saka, because I just thought it was so utterly pathetic what I've been hearing and seeing and reading since the Spanish Grand Prix. Right, before we get some questions from you guys, just going to talk about Thomas Partey. He's been all over the news in the last 24 hours about Barcelona and a potential move to him. I got asked about it on the Inside Arsenal Discord. Other people have been asking me about it as well. And I can only reiterate what I've already said when it comes to Partey in his future, that he's been offered a contract by Arsenal. It's not been accepted yet. Talks are ongoing over coming to an agreement. Both sides want to get to an agreement. But that agreement hasn't happened yet. And so while it hasn't happened, then he's very open to, or the possibility is always there that he could end up going to another club. But clubs are free to talk to him. He's free to talk to other clubs. He's out of contract. And if he can't come to an agreement with Arsenal, then he's going to go somewhere else. And it could well be Barcelona. They are interested in him. Atletico Madrid are interested in him. Juventus have been interested in him. And there'll be plenty others as well. So, I haven't heard anything has moved on in terms of him potentially signing that deal with Arsenal or coming to an agreement with Arsenal. They haven't reached an agreement yet, but talks are ongoing. And I'm still told that the likelihood is right now sort of leaning towards he stays, just because both sides at the moment are still trying to get an agreement because they want him to stay. But, the longer this goes on, the longer you can't come to an agreement, then might well end up going elsewhere. So we'll have to just wait and see on that. But yeah, those are the latest reports on Thomas Partey. Barcelona said to be interested, but they are interested. But I don't know myself. I haven't heard myself how hard they are actually pushing to get a deal done while these talks with Arsenal are ongoing. Right, moving on to some questions and comments from you guys now. Sutton Packpacker says, Charles, what do you think of the concept of the live performance before the Champions League final? Taking aside the brilliant performance from an all-time great band in Lincoln Park, is it good for the Champions League, or do UEFA cheapen the spectacle by turning it into a Super Bowl of sorts, or a combination of the two? Interested to hear your thoughts. I can't stand it. I really can't. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's grumpy. Maybe I'm getting old, but I can't stand it. It's not football for me. I just think the joy of an atmosphere pre-match of a big game is the fans and the noise and all that. And so why would you want to drown it out with Lincoln Park or any band? I just don't get it. It's not football for me. It never has been. I hate the fact that it sounds like at the World Cup final in USA, they're going to be doing a halftime show and all that sort of stuff. I mean, halftime show is slightly less bothering to me than pre-match, because pre-match the noise and the atmosphere is so great. At halftime people do go outside or go under and go and get their drinks and stuff like that, so the atmosphere sort of flattens down in the stadium. It's not so important. But before the game, you listen to that noise in the stadium before the Champions League final. You had the Inter fans, the PSG fans. It was so loud, and that is the noise you want when you're in and around football. You just want to hear the crowd. You don't need bands to play and drown all that out. I hate it. Even in the FA Cup final, they start doing it more and more now. Or they have the tannoy really loud blaring out music, and it's like, just listen to the fans, and that's what we all want. It's the best thing about football. And so yeah, I'm not a fan, I have to say, and I don't like that sort of Americanization of it. It works in America fine for the Super Bowl and all that, and American football fine. That's how it's maybe always been. I'm not sure. I don't know how long it's been such a big part of American sports for, but for someone who's been around football for a long, long time and spends every week going to watch football when the season's on, I just love the noise that is generated by the fans, the chants and all that sort of stuff. And I just feel like we're losing that a bit with all this pre-match stuff and the razzmatazz. And, I remember the days at Highbury, you'd get in there early doors when I was a kid, and they'd come out to do the warm-ups, and every player would get their song by the fans who'd go through during the warm-ups, and they'd just chant from Lee Dixon to Nigel Winterburn to Vieira to everyone. It'd just be, each song would be sung from the North Bank coming out to the players, and they'd all wave. It was just great. It was that atmosphere all building, and it was all made by the fans. So I feel like a lot of the sort of the artificial stuff, almost, it's not really what I want from football. But again, look, I'm 43 years old now. Maybe that's me. Maybe I'm getting old. And but yeah, that is me. A couple more here. Lands Rex says, just bring in Hine. Oh, this is on the goalkeepers. Just bring Hine back as number 2 if he doesn't want to stay, and then sign an older goalkeeper as short-term backup. And Thady Bryan says, hi, Charles, on the goalkeeping situation. If Barca get Garcia, could we not go for Szczesny or Ter Stegen at 35 and 33, respectively? They won't expect to start every game. Can be strong leaders for the group. I don't think getting Garcia would have been a good idea. Having a young, hungry goalkeeper could disrupt the group. You can count on one hand the amount of games Neto played. We played one. You can count on one finger the amount of games Neto played. So we can't offer our new goalkeeper a great season football-wise, which I agree, but I'm not sure someone like Ter Stegen, who it seems like if anyone's going to leave Ter Stegen when Barcelona, when Garcia signs, it's going to be Ter Stegen. Szczesny hasn't signed his new contract yet, but it's in the works, and it looks like he will sign, and it could well be Ter Stegen who heads off. But are you going to tempt him with a handful of games next season and a number 2? I'm not sure. I just like the idea of Hine. And I haven't seen enough of Karl Hine. I don't know how good he is with his feet, and obviously that's a really important part of playing for Arsenal. But he's had a good season. He's an established international. He had a good season in Spain where he got a lot of experience. So if you can't find someone, then just have Karl Hine as your number 2, I think, potentially, and get yourself an experience, maybe having an experienced option as well. So, yeah, I mean, I would have been up for the Garcia signing just because I think it kind of protected you, and it just means that you're not kicking it down the can for next season. If you end up just getting another experienced guy in for a short term this summer, and Karl Hine, who would probably go very soon, you're in the same position next summer. You're scrambling around for a goalkeeper again, and it just feels like we've been doing that every single summer for about 5 years now. So it'd be nice to have it all settled. And I think if Garcia had come in, it would have felt settled for the first time in a while when it comes to the goalkeeper situation. So I mean, it's an interesting one how Arsenal are gonna sort of focus on this going forward in this window now, if, as expected, Garcia does sign for Barcelona. But Karl Hine, for me, I think is an option that has to be considered. It just makes an awful lot of sense. Matt says, I agree with you on Rodrigo. I agree with your Rodrigo analysis, Charles. Club World Cup doesn't end until the 13th of July. After that, the player goes on holiday. You're probably already into August in terms of bringing him in. Add in that he wants to see how pre-season looks in Madrid. If he moves, it's going to be late. I think I'd view him as a potential fullback option, which is mad given how good he is. But I just think bringing a wide forward in this summer is too important to hang all your hopes on a guy who might not move. But if we can't sign Nico Williams or whoever we want, and Rodrigo is available later, you pay the money to do it. Yeah, that's how I feel, Matt. I agree with you. The more and more you sort of look at the Rodrigo situation, the more it feels like it might end up being a bit of a saga that drags and drags and drags. And I'm not sure this is a summer you really want that to happen for Arsenal. I think you've got to try your very best to get your business done early, be in a really strong position to attack the season as soon as it starts, because this is such a vitally important season for Arsenal. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's the way Arsenal really look at it. Rodrigo, if he was available now, if a decision had been taken early, fine, absolutely go for it. But the longer it goes on, where a decision seems to be, sort of 50-50, and each side, Real Madrid and the player seems to be like, we'll see how it goes until later on in the summer. And as Matt says, you got a summer with a Club World Cup where they're going to be involved as well. It does have the potential to potentially drag on a little bit. And finally, here one from Samuel says, Charles, do you reckon do you reckon we'll see a physical change in Nwaneri next season with a full season under his belt and another year older, perhaps looking more adapted to the senior game? I do. I think Nwaneri, more so than Miles, struggled a little bit more physically with games. When he started games, I think he really, really tired early. We saw he was, the game against Brighton when he was replaced at half-time after picking up a muscle injury. There was other games that Mikel said he just couldn't continue. He was cramping up at half-time and things like that. This is a 17-year-old kid at the end of the day, and it was his first real foray into senior football, so it's no surprise at all. But he's now going to have that year under his belt. He's going to come back stronger. You would hope pre-season is going to be really beneficial for him as well. So yeah, I do think we'll see a physical change in him. I think he's already physically, he looks great. He's really, really big. He looks like he can handle himself in the Premier League, but I'm not sure I'm talking more sort of power. I'm talking more sort of fatigue-wise and energy-wise and that sort of thing, that another year inside the Premier League will really help him in that regards. And he'll be able to rather be maybe a 45, 60-minute player. He'll be able to be a 75-minute, 90-minute player, which I don't think he has been this season. I think that the sort of numbers suggest that as well. So I do, Samuel. Yes, I think he'll be I think we will see a physical change in Nwaneri as he continues to develop and get used to senior football. And that's it from me, everyone, today. Thank you very much for watching. Appreciate it as always, and for listening. Of course, if you're listening via podcast, I'll be back tomorrow to do it all over again. So until then, speak well. Speak well. Until then, speak well. Until then, be well, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.